Hello, everybody, and welcome to Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic the Hedgehog rewatch podcast for fans of all shapes and sizes. I'm your host, Devin, joined as always by my comrades Lauren and Bruce. And guys, today we have the final episodes of Sonic SatAM.
Yeah.
Yes, regrettably so, but
Yeah. It's
Regrettable that it
unfortunate
ended, but happy that it happened.
well, sure, as the famous quote says.
Other than one of them, I think that these are some of the best episodes of the show.
Yeah, they're pretty good episodes.
Yeah, I agree.
Damn it.
Well, we're going to be kicking things off here with Season 2, Episode 8, The Void. After Sonic is almost sucked inside the Void, he finds a huge ring which Sally believes is an ancient relic, but turns out to be a trick of the sorcerer Naugus. Bunny and Sally are drawn inside the Void when Sonic comes to rescue them. Naugus pretends to be the king, so Sonic will use his speed to transport him outside.
So this is the proper introduction of Naugus. They were mentioned a few episodes back, but now they actually show up. And it's not like I was a huge fan of them, but you know, I'm still pumped to see them in this show, having seen them in the comics. It's just cool to see familiar faces.
He's a funky dude. I kind of like that he's not quite a villain in this. He's kind of amoral.
Right.
Yeah, so that was interesting. He's 100% a villain in the comics, but in this particular episode, I'm kind of wondering, why does Sonic not trust Naugus?
I mean, look at him. He looks like an evil wizard. I can't blame Sonic for not trusting him.
So I think that it makes sense for Sonic to be upset with him, given that he kind of kidnaps Bunny and Sally to get
also true.
Attention. But I think that by the end of it, they're sort of like, they're not buddies with him or anything. But I like that he's able to be. He hates Robotnik just as much as the heroes do.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he initially stops Sonic, and then he's like, you know, actually, go save your friends. I have more pressing matters to attend to.
Yeah. And we get to properly meet the current version of the king, who looks exactly the same as he did 10 years previously. He's fine. He's still Tim Curry. He's still a not especially unique king character, but he's a good dude, it seems like. I'll say what is weird to me is that Naugus disguises himself as the king to get them to come there, etc. I don't understand what the real king was doing. Was he just waiting for this to succeed? Did he know Naugus was doing it?
I mean, it's possible that the king didn't even know they were there.
I would assume so.
He doesn't seem that shocked to see them, is the thing.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Naugus, as they stated, has like unlimited magic in the void, except for the ability to escape. So they could have done any old trick.
It might just be that it's like, you know, to have to explain all that to him would take up more time. Because I will say, this episode feels like it was trying to squeeze a lot into 20 minutes. I would have liked a little more scenes between Sally and her dad.
Yeah, that was a little, I don't want to say underwhelming or disappointing, because those don't feel like the right words to use.
Well, it's just they finally reunite in the present, and we don't see them say much to each other.
Right, we see a little bit of it, and then suddenly it's like, alright, well, we've got other fish to fry, so let's just ignore this entirely.
Ironically, I think the Blast from the Past served most of the reunion between Sally and their father, even though that wasn't actually in the present. And then the writers are like, well, I guess we already did that. So we're going to focus on other things in this episode.
Yeah.
And just have the king in there to give the list. That's cool. We talked about it, and now we have that. And then just show that, you know, they're here, but they're kind of stuck for the moment. We'll get back to this later, I would have to assume.
Yeah. And they didn't forget about Ari, who got trapped in there a while back, but he's out now.
Yeah.
That is true. I forgot about Ari. I don't think about them too much, but that is kind of neat.
And I guess exposure to the Void for less than 10 years means you don't turn to Crystal outside of it.
That was my assumption.
Because this is the only visual medium that Naugus appears in, I'm going to comment on... I like that they have this hoarse voice to them. It gives them a sort of a sickly air. This show doesn't get a chance to go into it, but Nagas has like mismatched claws and hands, which makes it seem like they're some sort of mutant, and like, they're not quite put together right, and they're like permanently in this sickly state.
He seems like a guy who may have had a hard life.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of this is explained in the comics.
Not really, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the comics come up with a absolutely bonkers backstory for him, but they don't explain what his life was like.
Well, okay, I didn't mean that. I meant more the backstory.
Yeah, so maybe on the design front, but we don't know a lot about him as a person in any medium.
So, let's talk about how briefly Nagas does escape from the void, and then they're like, hey, Robotnik, and then Robotnik, like, this isn't something we see very often, they, like, completely freak out, and they're oh my gosh, no, don't kill me, or whatever. Of course, he doesn't want to kill him, he wants to torment him instead. But the thing that confuses me is Nogs is like, come on, Robotnik, and Robotnik, like, lands his ship, comes out, and, like, basically surrenders himself. Like, why? Is he just scared stiff? He can't think straight?
I assume that's probably the case, or he knows that there's not a whole lot he can do against Nagas.
See, that's what I think, is I think he knows there's no escape, and he's just coming out to try and make whatever punishment Nagas imbues on him a little less intense.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me is Nagas just lets Robotnik go at the end. They literally could have just yoinked Robotnik with them into the void, but no.
That is true.
Well, and that's one of the things, that's probably my only real criticism of this episode, is that Robotnik is scared enough of Nagas to just not want to have anything to do with him, and be super scared or whatever, but he still uses the void on multiple occasions to trap people, and I feel like, he should be thinking, if he's this scared of Nagas, he should be thinking of every time that he uses the void as a potential moment that Nagas could escape.
Well, to be fair, I don't think he uses the void after this episode. I think that's true. And up until now, he hadn't seen Nagas again. For all he knows, Nagas could be dead until this episode.
That's fair. I suppose he doesn't really know anything about the void himself, just that he threw the king in there.
I love that, so Nagas decides to just, like, change Robotnik's head into a bunch of different animals to torment them. And during that time, it's great, because Snively, like, completely, like, laughs their head off. It's so entertaining.
Yeah, because he didn't do anything to Nagas. So he doesn't...
That's true, yeah.
He just gets to sit by and watch in that rare opportunity. So another notable thing in this episode, this is the first mention we get briefly of something called the Doomsday Project.
Yeah.
Very ominous. I love how this season has, like, multiple different arcs woven together. You've got the King's List, you've got, characters showing up, Ari falling away and coming back, and then you've got this. It's just great. There's so many different things. It's
like an actual serial narrative, which Sonic is a little bit afraid of outside of, like, Sonic X.
Right. Sadly.
Season 2, Episode 9, The Odd Couple / Ro-Becca. We have another double bill episode, and just like the first one, it's another having nothing to do with the story episode.
I'm starting to wonder if these double billings were just a pad for season time.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, and it's weird, because I feel like they could have used that time. I don't know why they had to pad it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start with The Odd Couple. Antoine is forced to share his house with Sonic after a failed landing from Dulcie destroys the hedgehog's home.
So, because we mentioned it before, I had my eyes out. Dulcie is wearing the knee pads in this episode.
Okay. So I made a mistake saying that they didn't show up again. There's definitely some point at which they're not there, though.
That is true.
Maybe it's the fact that I'm paying bad enough attention that they would have to make her wear them literally always for me to notice.
I find it kind of absurd. This is a sillier episode, but Dulcie is so bad at flying that they have to direct her like she's a plane. And then when she crashes, Sonic has to sound an alarm, and everyone runs away in a panic. Like, she's not a plane. Can she land vertically rather than horizontally.
See, I always think about, like, how, bigger birds, when they're, actually, pretty much all birds, I think, when they're about to land, they flap their wings really hard to stop themselves, and then they just pap down.
Right, the wings act like a brake.
Yeah, I don't know why they need a runway for this dragon. Maybe she never learned how to do that? Why can't they tell her how to do that?
This is actually something I meant to bring up in the episode Dulcie, which I completely forgot to. To me, it seemed kind of like that even after Sally and Sonic saved Dulcie's mother, she was probably roboticized fairly soon after that. So maybe Dulcie was just never taught how to fly.
That is a decent enough theory. Sounds reasonable to me.
The only thing that makes sense to me.
I suppose, but it's a bad contrast with Tails, who can fly despite not being a flying animal or having any parents.
Tails just wants to impress everyone. They're too determined.
All his hyper-intellect in this show went to just learning how to fly.
Well,
you know what?
We'll get there in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that fairly soon, actually.
Alright.
But on this episode, I find Antoine's overreaction to the messiness initially entertaining, but I actually get furious and, like, on his side by the end of this episode.
Oh no, I sympathize with Antoine completely in this, because this is a situation he didn't ask for.
Right, Sonic just barges into his house.
And it's so weird, because on the one hand, Sonic does completely trash their place, but on the other hand, they're not mean-spirited about it at all. In fact, some of it is even subconscious, so I don't even know what to think about it. In fact, they're even nicer to Antoine than usual. They even offer them a chili dog, which does not seem like something Sonic would do in any other episode.
What it makes me wonder is, I don't think we ever see inside Sonic's house in this show. What kind of pigsty must that place be?
That is a very good question, if he just does not realize he's making a mess in Antoine's place.
It's the same problem that I have with... There's a Sonic Boom episode exactly like this, except it's Eggman living with Sonic. And that's two things. One, it's funny that the portrayal of Sonic in Western media has evolved from him being the punchline to him being the straight man. And two, Eggman's base is stock clean across that entire show, so it's really weird in both these cases that it's like, oh, there's such a messy roommate. It's exaggerating their flaws for the bit, and I get that, but It's like, come on.
It's a little... meh.
I'm probably looking into it too deeply, as it's meant to just supposed to be ridiculous. I do find it pretty amusing when Antoine just goes crazy at the end.
I know, he has like a Frank Grimes moment where he just breaks down and he just trashes his place.
What's this? Extremely high voltage. Well, I don't need safety gloves because I'm Homer Simpson.
Because life does nothing but shit on Antoine.
He's really the butt monkey of the series. It's kind of... At first, I was kind of like, okay, well, one of the characters has to be that, and then it kind of got out of hand.
Back in the very first SatAM story or episode that we recorded, me and Lauren were talking, and I was saying, I kind of don't mind when things are bad for Antoine because he's kind of annoying. And having now seen the entirety of SatAM, it's like, no, Antoine is dealt a hard hand by life for how he is portrayed as a character. So him being overconfident and like hyping himself up, I think that's a coping mechanism.
It has to be at this point.
Well, and that mistreatment continues in our second part of this, Ro-Becca. Antoine accidentally activates a robot Rotor was working on, which suddenly develops a crush on him.
I hope you guys like to see Antoine getting almost sexually assaulted.
But you see, it's funny because he's a dude.
No.
Yeah, no.
I hope it's understood that I was being sarcastic there.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Oh yes. Yeah, assault played for laughs doesn't work.
Right.
It's not funny. It's appalling.
Yeah, it's something that I don't even want to say it's aged poorly, because I think even in the mid-90s, that just would not have been viewed as, by a lot of people at least, would not have been viewed as okay.
It's a problem that people are more aware of now. It's the same
Yeah.
show that it's always been. But yeah, no, it's just a little gross. It's not that funny. It's just
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense in the context of the series. Like, this is a place that, half the show ago they barely just got the lights turned on, and now
Right.
Rotor's, technology has progressed to building working autonomous, like, almost sentient machines. And what is it for? Is it a lab assistant? I don't even remember, but whatever it is, it's not
yes.
doing its job.
She is supposed to be a lab assistant, but apparently Rotor fucked up somehow, and no matter what he does to try and adjust her personality, it just didn't work, or something.
Is that Antoine messed it up by like dropping a bunch of nuts and bolts inside of it at the beginning?
I guess.
But yeah, so let's talk about Rotor for a minute here. For most of the time, they act pretty reasonably.
Yeah.
But near the end, when Ro-Becca starts assaulting Sonic, all they do is they just stand by and laugh. Like, come on, take responsibility.
That's true.
For what you made.
I mean, I'd say Sonic has better physical faculties to defend himself, but that's still irresponsible of Rotor, I agree.
It is.
This is where the Sonic Says PSA about sexual harassment should have been placed.
Damn it!
They just quickly switch to it when Ro-Becca goes after Sonic. That would be perfect.
Because in Adventures of Sonic, they put that after an episode about a consensual relationship between Sonic and Breezy, even if it's built on a lie. But
right.
I can't believe that definitively there's one thing Adventures of Sonic did better than SatAM.
God damn. Never thought I'd see the day.
So
I could go on about how painful this is if I wanted to. There's some slapstick here and there, which it's mostly fine in this show, but here it compounds it. Antoine gets crushed under a door twice, and then falls down a hill, and I'm just like, ouch.
Well, the first door crush was kind of funny, but the second one was just like, alright, really?
Yeah, we'll have more Antoine abuse to talk about. I don't think we need to spend any more time on this dumb episode.
Right, alright. Yeah,
one more thing I have to point out, which is that there is no escape from the Arnold Schwarzenegger references. Even in this show, there's one part where Antoine does a bit where he imitates Schwarzenegger, and I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah.
What is it with people?
Hasta enchilada, baby.
I don't know you say that,
first,
and
but it shows up in Adventures a lot.
There are going to be so many more weird movie and pop culture references from the end of this show on. So it's
all right.
But yeah.
Anyway, episode 10, Cry of the Wolf. Sonic and company finally make contact with another Royal Freedom Fighter group. They must work together when a nearly indestructible war machine arrives to attack.
The War Machine is a test pod from the Doomsday project, which I kind of love, because it shows up, and it takes the entire episode, practically, to take it down, which really ramps up the stakes. If this is just some, test probe that Robotnik sent out, it's like, oh gosh, what is he really planning then?
Yeah, they actually they've built a ramping up of the sense of danger in this show, and this episode is pretty fun, especially after years of only knowing it as the most unfinished issue of the comics ever. But we get the Wolf Pack, we get Lupe. They somehow look less like somebody's persona than the hyena bikers from before, but I generally like them.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're cool.
It's nice getting to see more and more of the Freedom Fighters around Mobius.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're building up our army, so to speak.
Yeah, we're building up our Smash Brothers roster for the finale.
So something a little weird about the Wolf Pack. When Sonic and Co. first meet one of them, they act all hostile towards them for some reason. Like you're trespassing, and then they throw them at a trap door. But then instantly Lupe greets them like, "Oh, welcome! We were waiting for you," or whatever. And I'm like, "What?"
They were having a little jape. It's just for fun.
I guess.
They better be glad that the Sonic gang didn't have any new weapons they were about to test out.
There's an interesting use of Chekhov's gun in this episode. Initially, when they're traveling to meet the Wolf Pack, they get sidetracked in this one really like stormy place, and they're like, oh well, I guess we can't go here, and then they just leave it. And at the time I was like, I don't get the point of that. But near the end of the episode, they use the same stormy place to take down the test pod. I'm like, very clever.
That's right.
I'll say I have trouble placing Lupe's accent. I think the Wolfpack is meant to be like vaguely Native American kind
That
of,
was
but
what
her
I was
voice
getting.
her voice sounds like what white Americans do when you ask them to do an accent and don't specify what kind.
Just that vaguely, you can't quite place it.
I am doing an
Right.
accent kind of like this. I sound like fucking Steve Carell, that's it.
I knew you'd
Sorry.
figure it out.
Robotnik at one point calls Snively's head pointed, which is just absolutely hilarious hypocrisy.
Yeah, the irony.
Especially given Snively's head is like perfectly round.
True. Speaking of Robotnik and Snively, there's a really great moment in this episode where Robotnik is like, send me your surveillance tapes now! And then he shuts off the screen and Snively's like, oh, send me your surveillance tapes now! And mocks him. And then Robotnik turns on the screen again, and then he suddenly has to switch to this goofy smile. And Robotnik just like pauses for like a solid 2 seconds, looking at him like, I don't know what is going through his mind. Like, if he's trying to ramp up the intimidation, or he just doesn't even know what Snively's doing. It's just a weird moment. I like it though.
It's kind of like, have you ever like been in like a bike crash and you're like not sure if you did a flip or not? It's one of those moments where you're just stunned.
Yeah. So, at the end of this episode, we get all the freedom fighter groups assembled together. The list is fulfilled, but that made me realize, how the heck did the king get this list? Because they've been trapped in the void this whole time, and it can't have been like assembled in advance.
That's true, because he refers to them as freedom fighters. Maybe in the void they can still view the outside world?
There's a problem though, because it actually had to be made in advance, because Ari knows about it before he's thrown into the void.
That's a good point.
I guess
Maybe freedom fighter had or was already a title before Robotnik's takeover.
I think it's possible that these could have been like factions of the Acorn Kingdom that were loyal to the king, but that were not, you know, the military or something.
Right, their loyalty is not wouldn't be in question, and they couldn't be potentially roboticized by Robotnik.
I wouldn't like for them to have been literal freedom fighter groups, or at least not named that before Robotnik's takeover. Because
That does make sense. It doesn't really make sense for there to already be groups known as freedom fighters pre-Robotnik's takeover. So I think it does make more sense for
they
these just
became
to be a
freedom fighter groups.
Right. These are a list of people that the king knew would be loyal and could help.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
But that still doesn't explain why the list would have had to have been made pre-coup.
Maybe he's just paranoid about threats to his power, and this just happened to be a threat that was actually worse.
Huh.
It fucking makes the most sense, I guess.
Well, another problem is that Nicole explains that the Wolfpack were driven off their land by Robotnik. So how does the list note where they are now?
Well, yeah. Huh. That's a good point.
Ben, what are you doing?
It doesn't add up.
Huh.
Alright, well, I don't think we're going to be solving that mystery tonight.
Damn. Gonna keep me up and everything.
Season 2, Episode 11, Drood Henge. When Uncle Chuck's Bug reveals Robotnik's search for the legendary Deep Power Stones, he informs Sally, who tries to retrieve data regarding the royal family secret, but she's denied access via a time-encoded lockout. Meanwhile, on a training mission, Sonic and Tails happen upon Snively's Drood Henge dig, and Tails is captured. After rescuing him, Sonic zooms back to camp and tricks Nicole into revealing the Drood Henge facts. Joined in a seamless stone, the Power Stones are a source of inestimable energy. When joined by jagged edges, they create incredible destruction. When the Freedom Fighters find out Robotnik has the first stone, they realize he must never obtain the second. They formulate a plan to trick Robotnik into believing they've found the second stone, and when he tries to take it, Sonic destroys it in the lava springs. After finding the real second stone, Sally congratulates Sonic, then discovers the plan was devised by their newest freedom fighter, Tails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Tails Gets to Be Cool episode.
Damn straight it is, and I fucking loved it.
It's pretty great. I first have to talk about that summary. Mostly correct. However, it says that Sonic tricks Nicole into revealing
he doesn't trick her.
the Drood Henge scrolls or whatever. But no, he doesn't trick her. He just logics it out.
Right.
Which is interesting.
I wrote Sonic. See, here's the thing. I wrote Sonic talks Nicole into revealing it, but I said tricks.
Okay.
Saying talks Nicole into it makes more sense, because, as I said, he basically pulls a Jim Kirk and outsmarts the computer, or out-logics the computer, and Nicole's just like, alright, fucking, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. It's interesting that Sonic and Nicole have a sort of different relationship than Nicole and Sally. Because to Sally, it's like Nicole is just a simple machine. I don't think she would even try to argue with it. But Sonic's like, no, Nicole is a person, and I will convince them to tell us a secret.
Right, it's interesting. Sonic is treating Nicole like a living creature, because Nicole gives me AI vibes, so it's like, makes sense. Something that smart, why not treat it like a person? It effectively is a person.
Yeah, the other thing is that Chuck mentions that the king inserted programs into Nicole, so I have to throw away my theory that Nicole was made off of scrap from Robotnik, since it was obviously around before Robotnik took over.
Well, hold on. Nope. Your theory could still hold up, that Nicole was maybe an artificial intelligence that already existed, and the device that Sally is using was thrown together.
What it is that Robotnik put the person Nicole, I don't know which species she was, but he put her in the computer, he made it happen. What she did was she tricked him into getting rid of her and actually sort of found her way to the king. So all this happened before the coup, but it was still Robotnik.
Is this from the comics or from stuff that was explained as...
This is from Ben Hurst directly, his plans.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I talked about Nicole a whole bunch, but let's get back to the star, Tails.
Hell yeah.
So, I think you mentioned they don't ever demonstrate mechanical knowledge. No, they do. This is the episode where they do. They're able to disable a surveillance orb and the power station on their own. Granted, they said they picked up some stuff from Sally, but it doesn't matter. They're doing it themselves, and it's great.
I actually really like the explanation that that they've been picking things up from Sally. That is because I don't know. It doesn't really. I kind of find it weird that Tails is like he's like fucking in the games. He's like 8, and he's a super genius for just some inexplicable reason. It makes more sense for him to be picking these things up off of people that are around him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
so I really like that.
Yeah, I will say it's funny that you bring up his age, because this episode mentions that he's 10 years old, so he's older than he is in the games, but he's the character who everybody's been saying, oh, he's just a little kid, he can't do... He's less than 5 years younger than you.
But like, since they've basically had to grow up early, and Tails hasn't fully matured the way they have, they probably view Tails much more like the younger sibling that they want to protect.
I suppose, right. And he gets to participate here, and it is great. I love Tails. He gets to be a cool little dude.
Yeah, and as the summary says, at the end they acknowledge his accomplishments, and they're like, okay, yeah, you're just like the rest of us. You're a freedom fighter, officially. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now you get to be kidnapped every week.
So, on a different note, I was pretty surprised, actually, to see Sonic use Snively as a hostage in this episode. Just run up behind them and grab their arm. They don't have a weapon, so I'm like, what are you gonna do? Break his arm? It's weird. I don't know what he's trying to do, but either way, it's a weird move, and seems like, if you will, unheroic. It's weird to see Sonic use an underhanded tactic like that. But I guess, to their credit, they do let Snively go at the end. So.
Right.
I actually like Sonic using Snively as a hostage. Not in concept, I just enjoy the way Sonic acts during it. He's kind of a smug prick, which...
You know what, though? Sonic has had to deal with so much of Robotnik and Snively's shit, even over the last, over the show, but also before the show, that I'm not surprised he decided to just use Snively as a hostage.
Yeah.
I guess if you acknowledge some sort of development, it doesn't.
Right.
It seems a little strange for Sonic particularly, but perhaps they're changing their tact this late in the game.
Yeah, I think Sonic is just tired of having to has probably gotten tired of having to deal with this, and now they know, and also, all the freedom fighters now know that Robotnik has some big bad plan that he's working on, and
you're saying that desperate times call for desperate measures.
Exactly, desperate times call for desperate measures. Thank you. Thank you for finishing my thought, because I sure as hell couldn't.
Well, and speaking of measures, I guess not necessarily desperate ones, but I was caught so off guard by not just the reveal that Tails did it, but what this plan was, because we have rocks that give you ultimate destructive power if you use them wrong, and Tails has the idea to give them a fake one as a decoy, which that's Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, that is SA2. It took you actually bringing that up for me to realize that.
But there's no killer line from Robotnik where he outsmarts Tails' outsmarting.
Yeah, well, Tails also doesn't have a giant fuck you laser to destroy him with in that boss fight, so...
The parallels are there, though, I'll admit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
I can't imagine that, Shiro Maikawa or whoever was writing SA2 took inspiration from that, but it's a very fun coincidence.
Yeah, it's definitely a coincidence, but it's an interesting coincidence.
So, on that track, I do like how this episode leaves, like, a tangible thread hanging. Freedom fighters get one stone, Robotnik gets another stone.
Right.
In a story, when the villains get one half of the ultimate destruction thing and the heroes get the other, something's gonna go down with it at the end.
God, yes.
And we will be speeding toward that conclusion in our penultimate episode, Season 2, Episode 12, Spyhog. After Antoine saves Sally's life during a raid, Sonic can't stand his bragging and zips in to see Uncle Chuck, who finds out his bug in Robotnik's HQ is malfunctioning. While Chuck goes to fix it, Sally and Bunny, flying a rotor-created hover unit, find the Doomsday machine and download its schematics, along with a top-secret file detailing a plan to catch a spy by damaging the bug at HQ. They send back a rocket dove with a warning, and Antoine goes to warn Chuck. When Sonic returns to Knothole and finds out what happened, he takes off too, but it's too late. Antoine has been captured by Snively, who decides to torture him with bad food preparation. Sonic rescues Antoine, but Chuck is captured, after they uncover his hideout. Sonic rescues Chuck and demands that he return to Knothole now that his cover is blown, but Chuck shows him his new hideout and new MO working in disguise.
So I think the main plot of this episode is a pretty nice development. I always appreciate it when Robotnik is clever enough to throw a wrench in the Freedom Fighters' plans. You can't just spy on him forever and not get caught. I like that.
Right.
Yeah, and, more showcase of the indomitable will of Sir Charles is that he he has the option to go back home and be with his nephew, but he chooses to stay in the dangerous city as a spy, even though they know that he's the spy now.
And damn right he does, because he knows it's important and he's a badass.
Which you'd think that for any other character, they would play that as a stupid move, throwing yourself into an even more dangerous situation. But no, he doesn't get caught again. He is just the king.
Damn straight.
Indeed. That should have been Ben-Hur's scrap plans. Have friggin' King Acorn give the throne up to Chuck.
Yeah, and that's a neat way to, it doesn't feel like they just wasted the whole episode. It still feels like there was some progression, even though Chuck is still a spy. Now he has to try harder because his face is known, so I like that.
Yeah.
Listen, he's so badass that he can eat a chili dog as a robot.
So I was gonna bring that up, but you beat me to it.
That was a weird one.
This isn't Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. I didn't expect SatAM to do that same thing.
I mean, insofar as they even have a mouth, I guess it's not... I just don't know why they would be able to.
I mean, because I guess the roboticized characters don't really need to consume.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he just did, just because. I guess that makes more sense than.
I guess, yeah.
Something alternative.
Well, and that's one thing that no Sonic media ever touches on if they ever have a de-roboticizer is, do you age while you're roboticized? Probably not, but nobody ever says it, so.
Well, I would assume since it was invented as a way to help with old folks, that you probably wouldn't age.
Actually, you know what? I'm totally forgetting about Jules, who can't be de-roboticized because his injuries were too bad, so I'm full of shit, sorry.
Yeah, roboticizing continues to be an odd concept.
It's magic, okay? I love the visual near the start of the episode. The anti-gravity sneakers are maybe a little bit contrived, but I love the visual of Sonic casually standing on the underside of the drone as it flies by.
Oh, I forgot Sonic had those, and I was very confused why he was just sticking to the bottom of the drone.
He's using Sonic 4 physics.
Oh, no.
Actually, no, you can't do that in Sonic 4. It's Sonic 06.
Oh god, that's right.
I know he supposedly ruins it by gloating and simping, but Sonic being jealous of Antoine it's cringe. He's supposed to be... No, well, he's not supposed to be mature, but he's supposed to be above that, because Antoine seems to genuinely want to help in this episode, and he does.
Yeah.
Kind of.
He really tries.
Yeah, my note is that he shows remarkable bravery and does his best, even...
No, he does save Sally at the start.
Yeah, he does save Sally.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you that. But also, he gets his ass captured, like, to be fair, it was kind of an accident, but he still gets his ass captured, and he does... I guess him not being able to get to Chuck in time to warn him isn't really... Or not in time, because Chuck was out with Sonic.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just the thing at the beginning. After that, it's the world's out to get him. Yeah, I don't understand
Once again.
Yeah, well, and it does... I can forgive it big time just because it leads to one of my favorite scenes in this whole show where Snively tortures Antoine by making food wrong.
That's how you really know Antoine is French.
I love that so much. We got a little of it before,
Is it before that scene that Snively reads out where Antoine is from?
Yeah.
And he's very clearly from an area of Mobius that has a French name, or like a French-sounding name? Or did I just imagine that?
Sounds about right.
I have no idea. I didn't listen that well.
I don't know if it was an area or if it was like a group or something, because I think he was in Mobitropolis. Or maybe it's like his heritage or something. I wasn't paying too close attention, but I remember something like that.
I know that Antoine's family name in the show is Depardieu. Right. Whereas in the comics it's Decoulette, but
they're both French names.
Yeah.
French-ish, excuse me.
This is also the source of one of my favorite pieces of Sonic the Hedgehog fan art, which recreates the Metal Gear Solid 1 electric torture scene, except it's just Antoine as Snake and Snively as Ocelot.
I like that. That's fucking great. This episode strangely made me want escargot, even though I've never had escargot.
Yeah, the scene is just played up so much, and I love that Antoine tries to be strong and resist it, but in the end he has to call Snively out and be like, no, you can't do that. And at the end, when he's rescued by Sonic, he's more concerned about what Snively's doing than his own safety.
Go back, he's using margarine!
He's gonna cook escargot and margarine, because, that's bad for whatever reason.
Well, and it's especially funny for me, who has fucking no taste in food.
Actually, no, I have had escargot. Memory unlocked.
Right on. So, also on the topic of Snively, I like how every single one of Snively's mannerisms in the show contribute to them being less threatening and more silly. In this one, they start like humming this silly little hum, and they're like, I love it.
He's toneless humming it. He's really the perfect villain for Antoine.
He really is.
True.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, he really is.
They could do like the Mad Magazine Spy versus Spy comics, but with the two of them.
It's in such direct contrast to Robotnik in this episode, who seems like on the edge of exploding. There's a bit when they're like, oh, when I find that spy. And then they like crush a piece of metal in their hand. And it's like,
that was.
Oh my gosh.
Once again, Robotnik is like legitimately scary in this series.
It's great.
So my last note is at the end of this episode, they flash a message that says, next week, Doomsday. And stuff is going down in the finale when they advertise it like that.
Oh,
yeah.
with a name like Doomsday, something's gonna go down.
Alright, well, let's head right into Doomsday with Season 2, Episode 13, The Doomsday Project. When a pod lands in Knothole, Sonic and Sally realize the Doomsday Machine is already in operation. The Freedom Fighter groups break into the Doomsday Machine, only to find Robotnik letting them in. Sonic tries to destroy the control room, but is thwarted and almost roboticized, then escapes using multiple power rings. Sonic reunites with the Freedom Fighters, and the team plans to steal Robotnik's Deep Power Stone, which Sonic and Sally combine with their own to bring Robotnik down once and for all. Meanwhile, Snively resolves to continue the Empire's legacy himself, with the help of a mysterious stranger.
So there's a lot to talk about in this episode. But
yeah.
To start off, seeing the Doomsday Machine all built up and towering as Snively and Robotnik admire it, it somehow is very satisfying. A lot of Robotnik's inventions are just built before the episode starts or after a quick time skip, which I don't mind. But having one like this, it's over a whole season, just so much better.
Yeah, you get a sense for how far we've come, especially as Rotor invents water balloons that delete mechs from existence.
Yeah, so that's my next note, is that after all the build-up and Cry of the Wolf, Rotor's like, oh, well, we can't have us struggling for an entire episode with each of these things. And yeah, water balloons that just destroy the pods in one hit. I guess they needed something.
That undercuts the threat a little bit.
I'll admit it, that's true.
I assume the plan was for, just a fleet of these things to just sweep across the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. Somehow Robotnik has, made an advanced system of tubes that stretches, as they say, over the entire planet, which is insane. And those things just pop out of there, and they're just killing machines.
Kind of a Sozin's Comet scenario. The thing with the magic medallions, whatever they're called, deep power stones, it kind of, I'll say they kind of feel a little weird just in that Robotnik's got one, which we had that whole episode about keeping it out of his hands.
Right.
But, it's like we're keeping these things from him, and it felt, these are a very important part of the show, but the actual Doomsday Machine itself has nothing to do with them, so were they just a backup plan for him, I guess?
I assumed initially the plan was to power it with them.
Yeah, he probably changed plans a little bit when he didn't get both halves.
Right, so probably just threw a nuclear reactor in there and said, fuck it.
Well, there is this high-tech central, I think they call it the brain or something. It's got reinforced diamond glass and stuff, so I assumed it was some sort of substitute.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough, yeah.
Before we get too much into that, so in this episode, all the Freedom Fighters team up to work together to take this thing down, which is somewhat satisfying. You've got Ari and Lupe and, of course, the main group, but then you've just got Polo and Dirk of the Southern and Eastern Freedom Fighters that are just kind of there. I mean, they showed up a few episodes ago, but it would have been better if they had their own introductions instead of Sally being like, oh, hi, those two people are also here. You could have maybe taken out those two-in-one episodes and given each of them an episode, just saying.
Yeah, that would not have been a bad idea. It's a difficult thing for me because, on the one hand, I think that having multiple groups come together to confront a common evil, that's a very common action story trope, and I don't have any problem with it. But I also think that, and this is a much, much bigger problem in the comics, but I also think that having more freedom fighter groups kind of reduces the significance of Sonic and company, because, they're a team of kids who really just don't know what to do when the world is around them is covered by so much Robotnik. And they're, the other groups I don't know if they're all adults, but they look more like adults, certainly.
I assume they're all adults.
So it feels a little bit like offloading some of the responsibilities to them, which I think decreases tension in some ways.
I guess. And not
A
there
little
most
bit,
of
I
the
guess.
time. They're only there when things get serious.
It's not that bad.
So, we'll get more into this later, and the summary already alluded to it, but I like that in this episode, Robotnik is just completely blinded by anger towards the hedgehog, and Snively has almost become, like, genre savvy, as Robotnik is like, "Are you implying that the hedgehog is a match for me, Snively?" And you're like, yes, he knows it.
Yeah, we get to see Robotnik have a full, like, breakdown, complete with Jim Cummings tearing his vocal cords out. It's something to behold.
That was impressive.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about the end, but before then, there's this kind of mini showdown. It reminds me kind of back in Game Guy. But Sonic is trapped in a roboticizer, and, honestly, Robotnik should have gotten him. He, like, made this thing that counters the power ring specifically. And he's like, you can't stop with a power ring, hedgehog. And then suddenly Sonic just pulls out 3, like, no. The energy isn't supposed to last. You can't stock them up.
Yeah, that was weird. I looked away for a second, and suddenly Sonic has 3 of them, and he's stuck. It's like, first of all, that also breaks our theory with how the power rings worked, because our theory was that they couldn't stockpile them.
Yeah, it was one pool of energy that recycled, basically.
Right, and so that destroys our theory. Great.
Well, they literally say the power doesn't last. It's more like they just broke continuity for a second.
I guess they broke continuity for coolness, and you know what? I can appreciate that.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll give it that. But yeah, it's cool. So I guess I'll forgive it. Either way, Robotnik was destined to lose, and that was the point.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be pretty deep in the quagmire to give a shit about these things in the first place, so, it's, we can have some perspective.
But anyway.
Oh, no, I know, all of us are. Maybe Bruce has, like, one eyelid out, but we're gonna push him down eventually.
Oh boy, that's gonna be reading the comics for me.
Probably.
I'm really just gonna go down the rabbit hole.
It's gonna be great. I'm so excited. But yeah, Sonic and Sally, Sonic escapes the roboticizer, obviously, but they decide to... the Freedom Fighters are basically like, okay, we have to hold back and come back another day. But they decide, no, we're gonna use the Power Stones and fucking destroy everything.
Yeah, so just pause that for a second.
Oh, okay.
So the 3 rings, fine.
Oh, we're still talking about this?
I really can't forgive the fact that Robotnik just has his Power Stones sitting in an office, unguarded. It's not even in the safe, and Sonic is able to steal it in less than a minute of screen time. Like, that doesn't feel earned at all.
Yeah.
He read the manual.
True. He read the manual.
Yeah. No, he goes to, like, the case where it's sealed, but it doesn't have a lock on it, it just has a screen. You have to play the final round of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine to open it.
Right.
The one time the show directly references anything from the games, and it's that.
No,
and it's not even the right show.
You have to play Sonic Eraser.
Ooh. You have to beat the whole thing, so then it's like that's the highest challenge.
But
they should have put that one in Mania, and nobody would have known what was happening.
Oh, that's true. Everyone would have been confused.
Hey, Mania 2 is always an option.
They fucking should make that. Anyway, yeah, so Sonic and Sally, they use the Hyper Stones or whatever. They do a big smooch, and it's cool.
Afterwards.
Yeah, they do the big smooch right before the credits.
Oh, whatever, yeah.
So I can go into a bit more detail than that.
Yeah, I didn't write down that much.
So, yeah, I think it's lame the way they get both the Power Stones. However, even more so than before, it is awesome when they get both of them. I mean, it's a little silly that, oh, okay, now Sally gets super speed and they're both just an invincible bubble. But it is very flashy as they zip around and blow up everything.
You know,
yeah, the animation on display is pretty great.
It is, but I also found it to be really underwhelming because they won with a fucking MacGuffin. I was hoping for like an actual plan.
I again agree with you 100%.
Oh, okay.
I am only talking about the cool factor here.
Yeah, the cool factor is way off the fucking charts. That was rad, but thinking about it from like a, you know, like story standpoint, it's like, oh, they just won because MacGuffin.
I think it helps, you know, when you look at this knowing that it was the Season 2 finale, not the series finale.
Right. If you look at it as a Season 2 finale, it's better. I would still prefer it to have not been a MacGuffin, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain because it was still cool, or I'll complain a little bit because it was still cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm mostly just happy to see them willing to give Sally power, you know, on display at a similar level to Sonic in the first place, because
I did like that.
Nobody's really gotten that in this show, least of all Sally. You know, and you know, that's her power, is that she's, you know, quick-witted and intelligent, but
right. But I did like that Sally got to be, you know, we got to be part of bringing down the Doomsday Project.
Yes.
Well, maybe I'm being a little too forgiving, but you know, to stop myself from crying, I am like, no, this was a fine finale for the whole series, because it was, whether they liked it or not. I mean, everything explodes. Robotnik, like, goes completely insane. As we were mentioning earlier, they're just like, I really hate that hedgehog. I hate him, just over and over and over in more exasperated tone every single time.
Yeah.
And it's really awesome. And he's gone? Is he dead? Question mark?
Well, so are we going to be talking about unreleased material now, or are we, you know, do we have anything else about
there's the scene with Snively.
Yeah, I'm definitely not there yet.
So that ties into it.
But
okay. Because my only question is, what were the red eyes?
So let's finish anything else about the episode itself first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If that goes into unreleased stuff, let's finish up about stuff about the episode.
So, before Robotnik leaves, as he sees Sonic and Sally are trashing everything,
right?
He gets in a little escape pod, and he's like, "Only room for one, Snively," which is interesting, because you know, most of the time he'll bring him along, but it's like, I have to imagine he's just in such a horrible mood. He's like, "I don't care about anything anymore. I'll use you as a scapegoat. You know, get out of here. It's your fault," or something. I don't know. But then Snively pulls a fast one. He's like, "Oh, this will be your undoing." And then he escapes in his own little escape thing underground and escapes the explosion, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is, after Robotnik disappears, there's a big old victory party and everything for the Freedom Fighters, which is why I'm saying it really does feel like a series finale potentially. If you take out the final Sting scene, you know, there's a question about Snively, but if you take that scene out, it pretty much works as that.
Yeah, it could be one of those scenarios where they constructed it in such a manner that they did because they weren't sure if they were going to get renewed, and well, it didn't.
All right, I mean, I guess it leaves some other thing unsatisfied, but
no, I mean it.
Closest thing we're gonna.
My point is that it is, you know, obviously the season finale, but as a series finale, it's not too bad because they do defeat Robotnik. You know,
that's true.
So yes, but then at the end, in a moment that gets me so pumped to watch a season that doesn't exist, Snively shows up in this really cool garb and gives a little speech mocking Robotnik, and declaring war themselves on the Freedom Fighters. Then introducing someone mysterious in the shadows.
A pair of eyes, red eyes, that we never got to see who they belong to. So, now we get to talk about the things that this show was meant to do and didn't get to because it got canceled. So, we never learned who those eyes belonged to in the show, but Ben Hurst has talked a lot about what things would have continued with. They wanted to, do a third season, but that, got canned, and eventually in the early 2000s they tried to pitch a movie, but a different person working on the Sonic series at the time tried to pitch their own movie around the same time, and their communications with executives went really badly and screwed over the whole production. It was not great. But Ben Hurst's plan was basically that Snively would try to take over as the main villain, but the Freedom Fighters would stop him so bad that he would open up the void and free Naugus, who would become the true villain for Season 3. So those eyes did belong to Naugus. However, at the time that they were making it, they did consider those eyes being Metal Sonics. They changed it late in production.
Interesting, okay.
Really? Because I did some reading after I watched this episode, and I heard that it was supposed to be Knuckles, not Metal Sonic originally.
Did I say Metal Sonic?
You did.
Said Metal Sonic.
I meant to say Knuckles. How the hell did I screw that up?
You said you thought it was not Metal Sonic at one point.
Maybe. Sorry, I'm getting my wires crossed here. I haven't been at 100% this episode. Anyway, so Snively would have ended up at one point leaving and joining the Freedom Fighters against Naugus, only to secretly plan to betray them, only for that plan to be found out and foiled by Antoine, which, more character progression for him.
Interesting.
There was all that stuff with Nicole originally being a person and finding her way to the king and all that. We've talked about that. And there were some plans, as we've mentioned, for Knuckles to show up, but from what I read, it sounded like they wanted to leave most of the Knuckles stuff for a fourth season, which extra did not happen.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, the comics do pay off some of this stuff in their own special way. Some of it is good, some of it is bad, some of it far surpasses the original material, actually. But it does take a while.
Yeah, it's kind of all we've got, really. That's interesting to hear, for sure. One thing I found when I was curious about this was I looked through in the 2007 DVD release. They included some storyboards, including some unused scenes, and one of them shows, post a picture, Snively in his underground bunker watching the Doomsday Project blowing up. And he's just sitting there eating popcorn, and there's a dartboard with Robotnik's face on it, and I just love this image. It is great. Although I totally understand why they didn't include it, because it would have broken the epicness of everything blowing up. But it's fun. Yeah,
so I think that it is a shame that we never got, proper third, fourth seasons of the show. I think that, especially the second half of the second season, other than the weird, double-header stupid episodes, is really strong material. I think some of the best television content that Sonic has put out.
Oh yeah, no,
it's pretty good.
Like I said, I was surprised because I had seen this relatively recently, within a few months, for the first time, and then saw it again for the podcast. But finishing it off, I was hit again. Because the first time I was like, oh, it's a shame. It was canceled. There's no more. But I was hit again with the same feeling. Gosh. So yeah, I agree. It's put together very well to invoke that in me all over again.
Yeah. Well, I will say that, I'm reading through this list of plot points, and, some of them work, some of them don't. But most of them, the stuff with Nicole, and not the stuff with Knuckles, actually, but some of the stuff with Antoine, the way that the comics handle that stuff, and Snively too as well, it's not terrible when they take influence from that stuff. So we do get a consolation prize of sorts that also happens to mutate a few extra ears, but it's a prize nonetheless. It's a member of the family, and so it doesn't hit me quite as hard. Although I probably saw a lot of this. We're, of course, watching this at a much older age than most of the kids who got really disappointed by the lack of a third season did.
That is true. I haven't read super far into the comics. I just had just enough background to basically be like, oh wow, this is like the comics on television, which is wrong, but it's the way it seemed to me. But maybe not so far into all that extra stuff. But I'm interested to see how that's all done.
Yeah, which it's not the next thing up, of course. Next thing is the OVA, and then Underground, and then maybe the mangas. I don't know. I don't want to push everything in front of the comics, but I also don't want to have us do a big stretch of comics before ending off with a wet fart of like children's books or something. So
Yeah.
But SatAM, good show. I liked it.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Easily the best cartoon that I've ever watched from Deke Animation. Which is not a high bar to clear, but I don't know. Maybe there are other 90s cartoons that they did that people liked, just none of the video game ones.
I mean, I kind of like the Zelda cartoon, but it's basically, I guess it's still almost ironic, like.
I think it would have to be.
Well, excuse me, Princess Sally. Alright, well, anything else to say about this one?
SatAM's great, man. I just love it.
It's good. It is good.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed doing these episodes with you guys. I think we've had a good rapport, a good balance of dialogue between us. And not just because, Bruce wasn't here for every Adventures of Sonic episode. He won't be here for every Underground episode. But, he's managed to stay present for these because it's actually good, so...
Yeah, because I actually it was the only one of the shows I was actually looking forward to watching.
Yeah. Alright, well then, next time we are going to be looking at the 1997 Studio Pierrot Sonic Original Video Animation, or as I call it, the Sonic Anime Movie.
That's going to be fun, because that's really good.
I think it's cute. I think we're going to have fun with it.
Oh no, I've watched it with you. I know it's good.
Oh no, I've watched it with both of you guys. That should say that I like it more than enough.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it again.
I'm looking forward to watching it in earnest. Before, you just kind of forced it on me. I was like, what is this nonsense? But maybe I'll appreciate it better this time.
Alright, then, with all that said, we are finished for tonight. Feel free to share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can always reach us at deepdivezonepod@gmail.com or at deepdivezone on Twitter. Have a great night, and we'll see y'all next week.